Conventional war. Conventional war is the armed conflict between nation-states or organized groups, using conventional military weapons and tactics. It typically involves uniformed soldiers, tanks, aircraft, and naval vessels engaged in battles on land, sea, or air. Unlike unconventional warfare, conventional war follows established rules of engagement and is governed by international laws and agreements. The aim is often to defeat the enemy's armed forces and achieve strategic objectives through direct combat. Examples include World War II and the Gulf War. Civil war. A civil war is a conflict within a country between different groups, such as government forces and rebel groups. It involves armed combat and often arises from political, social, or economic tensions inside the nation. Examples include the American Civil War and the Syrian Civil War. Guerrilla war. Guerrilla war is a type of warfare where small mobile groups use surprise attacks and hit-and-run tactics against a larger, often occupying force. Guerrilla warfare is often used by groups with less military power, aiming to wear down and eventually defeat a stronger opponent. Examples include the Viet Cong in the Vietnam War and the Mujahideen in the Soviet-Afghan War. Asymmetric war. Asymmetric war refers to conflicts where opposing sides have significantly different military capabilities, strategies, or resources. One side often employs unconventional tactics, such as guerrilla warfare or terrorism, to make up for its weaker conventional forces. The goal is to exploit the opponent's vulnerabilities, rather than engage in direct confrontations. Examples include the French Indochina War and the Arab Revolt. Total war. Total war is the complete mobilization of a nation's resources and population toward the war effort. It transcends military objectives and aims to target not just the enemy's armed forces, but also their economic, industrial, and civilian infrastructure. In total war, entire societies become involved, with civilians contributing to the war effort through manufacturing, rationing, and other means. Examples include World War I and World War II. Proxy war. A proxy war is a conflict where opposing sides are supported by external powers that do not directly engage in combat themselves. Instead, they provide military, financial, or logistical support to local or regional forces aligned with their interests. This allows external powers to pursue their objectives without risking direct confrontation. Examples include the Cold War-era conflicts in Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Angola, where the United States and the Soviet Union supported opposing factions. Nuclear war. Nuclear war is a catastrophic conflict in which nuclear weapons are used, resulting in immense destruction and loss of life. It involves the detonation of nuclear bombs. The use of nuclear weapons can lead to mass casualties, destruction of infrastructure, and long-lasting effects on global security and the environment. Cyber war. Cyber war involves attacks on computer systems and networks by state or non-state actors to disrupt, damage, or gain unauthorized access to information. It's a form of conflict where the battlefield is digital, with opponents targeting critical infrastructure, government networks, financial systems, and military assets. Cyber warfare tactics include hacking, malware deployment, denial of service attacks, and information manipulation. These attacks can severely compromise national security. Trade war. Trade war refers to economic conflict between two or more countries. It typically arises from disagreements over trade practices, such as unfair subsidies, intellectual property theft, or currency manipulation. In a trade war, countries impose tariffs and other restrictions on each other's imports to protect domestic industries or gain leverage in negotiations. This can potentially harm economies worldwide. Cold War. A Cold War is a state of political tension and rivalry between nations characterized by threats, propaganda, and proxy conflicts, without direct military engagement. It often involves ideological differences, spying, and arms races, such as the nuclear arms race between the US and USSR. Religious war. A religious war is a conflict driven primarily by religious differences. It involves violence between groups or nations based on different religious beliefs. Religious wars can arise from disputes over territory, religious freedom, or perceived threats to religious identity. Examples include the Crusades in the Middle Ages and conflicts in the Middle East involving violence between Sunni and Shia Muslims. Colonial War. A colonial war refers to a conflict between colonial power and local populations in territories under colonial rule. These wars often arise from resistance to colonization and exploitation. They may also include conflicts between rival colonial powers competing for control over overseas territories. Examples include the Indian Rebellion of 1857 and the American Revolutionary War against British colonial rule. Independence War. Independence War, also known as a Revolutionary War, is a conflict in which a group or nation fights to gain independence from a ruling authority. Wars of independence often entail battles, uprisings, and negotiations aimed at achieving autonomy or statehood. Examples include the American War of Independence and the Irish War of Independence. Border war. A border war is a conflict between two or more neighboring countries over disputed territories or boundaries. These conflicts often arise from historical grievances, ethnic tensions, or competing claims to land or resources along shared borders. These conflicts can escalate into full-scale wars if not resolved peacefully through negotiation or international mediation. Examples include the Sino-Indian Border War of 1962 and the ongoing border disputes between Israel and its neighboring countries. War of Attrition. A war of attrition is a prolonged conflict where both sides aim to wear down the enemy's resources and will to fight through continuous engagement and exhaustion. Rather than seeking decisive battles, the focus is on the gradual erosion of the opponent's strength over time. Tactics often include relentless attacks, siege warfare, and economic blockades to diminish the enemy's capacity to resist. Examples include the trench warfare of World War I and the Vietnam War. Drug war. A drug war refers to a government's efforts to combat the production, distribution, and use of illegal drugs within its borders. These efforts typically involve law enforcement actions, such as arrests, raids, and seizures. Drug wars can be complex and controversial, often leading to human rights abuses and unintended consequences, such as the rise of violence and the expansion of organized crime. Examples include the ongoing drug wars in countries like Mexico and Colombia. Terrorism war. A terrorism war is a conflict characterized by acts of terrorism executed by non-state actors against governments, societies, or specific groups. Unlike conventional warfare between states, terrorism wars often involve asymmetrical tactics, such as bombings, assassinations, and hostage-taking, aimed at instilling fear and destabilizing governments. Counter-terrorism efforts by affected governments typically involve intelligence gathering, law enforcement actions, military operations, and international cooperation to prevent, disrupt, and respond to terrorist threats. Examples include the global war on terror initiated by the United States after the September 11, 2001 attacks, as well as ongoing counterterrorism operations against groups like Al-Qaeda. Information war. Information war is a conflict fought in the information domain using technology, propaganda, and psychological operations to influence perceptions and manipulate opinions. It involves the spread of disinformation and propaganda through various channels, including social media, news outlets, and online platforms. These tactics aim to weaponize information to influence political outcomes and destabilize governments. Insurgency. Insurgency refers to a violent, armed rebellion or uprising against a government or ruling authority, typically carried out by non-state actors seeking political, social, or ideological change. Insurgencies often arise from conflicts related to governance, discrimination, and perceived injustices. They aim to challenge or overthrow established power structures. Insurgent groups may employ guerrilla tactics, ambushes, bombings, and other asymmetric warfare methods to weaken government control and gain popular support. Examples include the Afghan Taliban insurgency and the Iraqi insurgency. Ethnic conflict. Ethnic conflict refers to the struggle between different ethnic groups within a society, often fueled by disputes over territory, resources, political power, or cultural identity. Ethnic conflicts may manifest as riots, protests, discrimination, or even full-scale warfare. They can have profound social, political, and economic consequences, leading to displacement of populations, human rights abuses, and long-term instability. Examples include the ethnic conflicts in Rwanda and Sri Lanka. Biological warfare. Biological warfare, often referred to as biowarfare or biowar, is the deliberate use of biological agents such as viruses, bacteria, fungi, or toxins to cause illness, death, or other harmful effects in humans, animals, or plants. Biological weapons can be deployed through various means, including contaminated food or water supplies, aerosolized sprays, or direct contact with infected individuals or materials. The use of biological warfare can lead to widespread casualties, panic, and social disruption, making it a particularly insidious form of warfare. Biological weapons have been outlawed by international treaties, such as the Biological Weapons Convention, but concerns remain about the potential for their use by state or non-state actors. If you enjoyed this video, check out our other videos and hit that subscribe button. See you next time.